Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fearlessly Authentic. I'm your host, Jody Harrison Bauer, and I am so happy to have you join me today. I am also thrilled to share with you that we are now a top 5% globally rated podcast. Yay! And that is because of you, for you sharing the show and just continuing to come back. I really appreciate it. We have been at this for over 4 years and have recorded, I think we're up to 232 episodes. So it is my thrill every single week to bring you new content that will help improve your life so you can live fearlessly authentic. And I try to do that every week by myself or with a guest to educate you, empower you with that information, entertain you a bit, and inspire you to live your most fearlessly authentic life. Because if we're not doing that or trying to do that every single day, then what the heck are we doing here? So remember to rate, review, and subscribe as you have been all doing, and share with your friends so we can spread the love, spread the education, and empower women with information we all need to be our best and stand in our power. Today, I am excited to share with you a lot of information that is very important to me. And it's important to me because when I was in my 30s, I did not have this information accessible to me. We didn't have social media. When I was in my 30s, it was the 90s. So we didn't have social media. We didn't have ways to, the only way we had to learn more is to go to the library, to seek out an expert in the field. But there were no experts in the field when it came to menopause or perimenopause, all the way out to postmenopause. Nobody was talking about it. And it was sort of like that ick, dirty word that nobody wanted to ever say. And I remember when my mom was going through menopause, she went through it right after she had my little sister, who is 5 years younger than me. So around 32, 33, I remember my dad always saying, "Your mom is going through the change." And my mom would always be like stripping off layers, and she would be complaining about hot flashes. That's what I remember the most. And, I think tempers flared. I think she was overly emotional. I just recall that there was some kind of chaos going on in the house, more chaos going on in the house than normal. And remembering, both of them just referring it to the change that my mom was going through. But it was never, really discussed. And why would she be talking to her children that were, we were all under the age of 10 at the time. So I can't even imagine going through menopause with three daughters under the age of 10. My little sister was really young. She was only maybe 2 or 3 years old. So I just can't even imagine it. And that's always stuck out in my brain because I remember when I had my two miscarriages at 30 and then at 31, because I remember that my ex-husband and I wanted our daughters, well, we didn't know we were going to have two girls, that we wanted to have children that were about 3 years apart. We thought that was a really good age range. He and his siblings are 3 years apart. And it just seemed like they were close enough, but far enough apart in their grades. So there was like no competition, if you guys know what I mean. A lot of people who have children that are 1 year apart, there tends to be maybe some competition. But that's what we had agreed on. Well, it didn't go as planned because I had two consecutive miscarriages. So we took some time off from trying, and then lo and behold, we had got pregnant again. So I've had 4 pregnancies, but 2 births. And wow, that's the first time I've said that without crying. And so my daughters are 3 years and 9 months apart. They're 4 grades apart. But what I remember when I was going through those miscarriages at 30 and 31 was that my mom had gone through menopause at such an early age and was this genetic. And it is not genetic. At least that's what I was told by my gynecologist at the time, that it doesn't make a difference when your mom went through menopause. It doesn't have any effect on when you will go through menopause. And that is true because I didn't go through it um, until I started having perimenopausal symptoms at the age of 38. So the average age, there are three stages of menopause. There's perimenopause, which you can go through for 7 to 10 years before you actually hit menopause. And when you hit menopause, what that means is that you've gone 1 year without having your period, 1 full year with no bleeding at all, no spotting, no nothing. Uh, and that is when you are considered for one day in menopause. And then 24 hours later, you are a postmenopausal woman. Yay! Welcome to the club. And when I started having perimenopausal symptoms, as I mentioned, I was 38. So I had a 6-year-old and I had a 10-year-old. And so life was just kind of, moving along. I remember that I had an episode where I was feeling faint all the time. And my ex-husband and I had agreed that we would we were pretty sure we were only going to have two, especially since I had the two miscarriages and I was getting older, back then in the 90s, again, no social media. Everybody was just getting their first computer in their home, having phones around. I don't even think the iPhone was around yet. So we had sort of decided that we would just have the two girls, and I had gone back on birth control. I was still getting my period regularly, but then when I was like 38, 39, I started getting my periods more irregularly, spotting. And then what happened also was that I started feeling faint. And it was really weird. I had sort of those weird episodes when I was pregnant with my oldest, where I'd have to pull over on the road, or I used to be a buyer, so I would go into the city on buying trips. And when I was pregnant, there were times where I had to find a stoop to sit down on because I thought I was going to pass out. Anyway, I started feeling faint again, and I remember I was visiting my dad, and he has hypertension. He brought me to the doctor right away. I just didn't feel right. I just didn't feel right. My little one was with me, and the only medication I was on at the time was something called lololestrin, which is a birth control. And but when I went in to see the doctor, he told me my blood pressure was super high, and he took me right off of the birth control because the birth control could make my blood pressure higher. So with that, I was put on blood pressure medication, which is genetic and is a genetic thing. My dad had it, and my two sisters have it. And I knew I was perfectly healthy, height, weight, proportionate, low body fat, the whole thing. So we knew it was genetic. But now, what was I supposed to do? I needed to be on some type of birth control because I did not want to get pregnant at the age of 38. So then it was the big discussion to discuss birth control. So my ex-husband decided to get a vasectomy at the time because he didn't want me to get my tubes tied. It was more invasive for me. He said, typical attorney, give me 90 days to think about this and I'll get back to you. He got back to me 90 days on the dot and said, okay, I'm going to go in and get the vasectomy. So we didn't have to worry about birth control anymore. And at the time, I was on blood pressure medication. So that's when I started blood pressure medication. But I was also having what I noticed also was like some mood swings and spotting. And I just, was still going to the gym every day. I was still living my life the way I was living it, but shit was changing. Things were changing for me. I felt changes in my body, not weight gain or anything like that, but just more moody. And I was never really a moody person. So I went to see my general practitioner and he prescribed Prozac for me. Ladies, if you are feeling these symptoms, mood swings, you just don't feel right, and your doctor gives you an antidepressant or anti-anxiety, they're usually connected, get your blood work done first. Do not fall prey to starting an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medicine, because I'm not a doctor, but there's more to the story than your general practitioner just giving you one of those drugs. So before you put yourself on one of those drugs, get your blood work done and find out what your hormone levels are. I have suggested this to my daughters who are 31 and 35 to get their blood work done to find out, so they have the education and feel empowered to make the decisions about their bodies during this time in their life. And I don't know if they're perimenopausal. I don't think they are. But I want them to know what to do before they're playing catch up. So I didn't have this information. I didn't know who to go to. The only person available to me really at that time was, my OBGYN. That's who I was still seeing. I was still getting my pap smears. I was still getting everything that I needed to get done to stay healthy. So now here I am. I'm 38 years old. I'm on no birth control, but I'm on a low dose of Vasotec, which I'm still on. Actually, it was 25 milligrams. I'm down to like 2.5 milligrams. I'm basically on I'm like on nothing, but I'm still on it. So eventually I start getting my periods more regularly, but it's definitely, spotting on and off, mood swings. And isn't it interesting? And I took a poll yesterday. I wanted to know what the correlation was between women filing for divorce and being in menopause, specifically peri and in menopause. So the definition of perimenopause is the transitional period leading up to menopause, marked by changes in menstrual cycles, hormonal fluctuations, which affect our mood, and various symptoms. Duration can last several months to several years, typically starting in a woman's 40s. The symptoms are irregular periods, hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, sleep disturbances, and vaginal dryness. And I remember it was for me, not the hot flashes, it was more of the mood swings and their irregular periods. So I just went on with my life, continued to work out, continued to live my life. But it was also around the time I was 38, 39 years old that I started thinking about my life, my overall life. Am I happy? Yes, it's very normal. My ex-husband and I were the same age for a man at that age to be working his ass off, building his empire, providing for his family. We had decided that I would be a stay-at-home mom while he worked. And after the birth of my oldest daughter, that is when I started my part-time gig of personal training and group fitness classes and nutrition. And I was able to do that on the side um, because we had help from family and friends with our children. But I started taking stock in my life and wondering, like, is this all that I am? Am I'm being true to myself? And I didn't have specifically those questions, but I can tell you now at 63, I knew that's what I was thinking back then. I wasn't spending a lot of time with my then husband. He was working his ass off, and I was home with the girls. I would go to the gym. I had my friends, and I found myself like not feeling fulfilled, like I wanted more. And, like every relationship, it wasn't perfect. I was striving for more, not for where the grass was greener, but I just felt like something more was missing from my life. Felt, well, maybe if I opened up a business, maybe if I did this or that. And to be honest, he didn't support me on any of those things. He wanted me home with the girls. So, not to get into the whole divorce thing, because this is not what this episode is about, but I was spending a lot of money. I was shopping a lot. So I was either working out or shopping or home with the girls or shopping with the girls. And I was like, I don't feel fulfilled. Like the shopping was something I was doing out of boredom. I didn't need the clothes. I didn't want the clothes. Where was I going in the clothes? Can anybody relate to that? And I decided, to talk to him. He wanted me to go to therapy for being a shopaholic. I wanted him to go to therapy because we didn't communicate well. You know, our oldest daughter was 12, going through like a lot of different changes herself. And there was just, we couldn't communicate well. Long story short, I filed for divorce, and I was divorced by the time I was 43 years old, 42. I almost 43 years old. It was 2002. And referring back to the poll I started talking about, I did a poll yesterday on Instagram asking my followers, the ladies, how old they were when they got divorced. Interesting. The women, the average age of a woman who got divorced on the poll that I took yesterday is 40.3 years old. Interesting, right? Menopausal symptoms, the onset of menopausal symptoms for these women, 45.2 years old. So it's definitely in that age range of perimenopause and menopause. So we typically go through, and I thought that was interesting because when I think about when I was perimenopausal, the biggest symptom for me was the mood swings and the irregular periods. And that's why I was curious always to see what is the relationship between a menopausal woman and a divorced woman. And I got my answer. It's within 5 years of the two. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back with more results and talking more about menopause and postmenopause and what you should learn and know right now. Be right back. Welcome back. My point in telling you about the relationship, which I found to be so interesting, I'm wondering if this has to do with the mood swings, what we're going through. So I thought maybe it would be a little bit different with women that are younger than me, but I still know that women are not being educated enough on understanding what their body's going through and understanding that those are perimenopausal symptoms, and perimenopausal symptoms can last 7 to 10 years. So if you are a 35-year-old woman and something in your brain and body starts feeling a little different than normal, more than likely you are beginning to experience perimenopausal symptoms. If you find that you are gaining weight, You can't lose weight. You can't gain muscle, foggy brain, mood swings. Forget even irregular periods. Maybe you're still getting your period regularly, but you have all these other symptoms and you're tired all the time. If this is all new to you, I want you to go see a hormone expert. I need you to go get your blood work done, get all of your hormones checks, get a full blood panel. I just did this last week. I had 14 vials of blood taken from me. I just got my results. I will share them in more detail on another show because I haven't sat down with my doctor yet to go over them in detail. But we're definitely going to make some adjustments because FYI, I'm feeling a little tired lately, and it's very odd that I would feel tired. I'm not one to feel tired. And we just briefly talked about the possibility that I have my progesterone levels are a little high, and maybe we need to decrease the dosage. So let's imagine that you are 37, 35 years old. Let's just take 35 years old, which is a little early. Okay. So let's take it to the average age of a perimenopausal woman would be, let's just use the round number of 45, 48. I'm going to use 48. And so you start having perimenopausal symptoms at 38. Again, everything that I just described to you, all of those things. And maybe you are having some hot flashes. Maybe you are having some night sweats. Maybe you are, all of a sudden you're sweating profusely in the middle of the night. And this isn't like you. Don't ignore these symptoms, ladies. Go see your doctor. Now, here's the problem. I'm not shitting on OBGYNs. And gynecologist's job is preventative care. He or she is there to detect issues with our reproductive system, our ovaries, our cervix, our every fallopian tubes, everything, to make sure that everything is working correctly, right? And then the obstetrician is there to make sure that we have a healthy pregnancy and to catch the baby and to make sure that the delivery is safe for the mommy and the baby. So the OBGYN, after we have our babies, we just start seeing our gynecologist. We do not need to see them for obstetrics anymore. So there are a lot of gynecologists now who, from everything that I know, is that learning about hormonal health in medical school when you're becoming an OBGYN is like one course. So I do think that gynecologists are waking up to learning more about hormonal health. But I know, and I know women now who are going to their gynecologist, and the gynecologist is telling them HRT, hormone replacement therapy, is wrong for you. It can cause you to have ovarian cancer. It can cause you to have a heart attack, a stroke. Those risks, look, there are risks in every medication that we take, right? Every medication, everything that we take, there are risks. But if you go to an expert who only studies hormone health for women and knows exactly how to read that blood work and prescribe exactly what you need. And it, by the way, ladies, it is forever changing. I have been on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy since I was 60. That is very late to start. They usually say there's a 10-year window to start hormone replacement therapy from the time you went through menopause, which for me was 50, to the time that you are now. And thank goodness I noticed a difference in a friend of mine who's 10 years younger than me. Like, what the hell are you doing? You look great. Like, your skin looks beautiful. Like, what are you doing? And she shared with me that because she had not a hysterectomy, but she went through menopause through, let's just call it a hysterectomy. She never went through menopause. So she knew because she's smart and she's talking to other women. And we have social media to help us here too. And the whole Generation X ladies who are going through menopause right now are helping us so much. They're bringing it to the forefront that menopause isn't an icky word. And they are the first generation of women to have social media as their huge platform to speak about the things that they're going through. Anyway, I started hormone replacement therapy at 60. And luckily, my doctor was able to help me. And we get blood work done every 3 months to make sure that we could constantly change the medications I'm taking. This is an ongoing thing. And it reminds me of when I would help a client lose weight, get healthier, gain muscle, and eat the right way. And after she would hit her goal, she would say to me, this is not all my clients, but many of them would say to me, well, so like, how long do I have to eat like this? And how long do I have to exercise like this? And I said, do you like the way you feel? Do you feel healthier? Do you feel stronger? And she said, yes. I said, so why would you stop? Why would you stop doing something that makes you feel better? And I would use the example for her, which was, let's just say you go to the dentist and the dentist says, Jody, your teeth look great. Keep doing what you're doing. No cavities, no, no issues with your gums. Everything looks great. Healthy gums and teeth. Just keep doing what you're doing, Jody, and we'll see you in a year. See you in 6 months. Now, I wouldn't look at the dentist. So that would be like me looking at the dentist and go, well, if everything looks okay, like, do I need to keep doing this? And the answer is yes. You need to keep brushing your teeth and flossing your teeth. Yes. And you do need to come in for regular visits if you want to continue to have healthy gums and teeth. Same thing with exercise and nutrition. And it's the same thing with hormones. Now, not every woman is a candidate for hormone replacement therapy. That is a discussion you need to have with somebody who is an expert in this field. And there are more and more doctors that are getting involved in this preventative care of medicine for women. I had to wait until I was 60 years old. Let's go back to perimenopause for a minute. I want to make this point very strong. If you feel any difference in your body, please don't ignore it. It is probably a sign that something is off in your body. And our hormones, listen up, our hormones control everything in our body. They control everything. If you are not losing weight, if you are not gaining muscle, if you are not sleeping well, if you are not energetic, our hormones control everything. That is the reason that our bodies are ready after we get our period to have a baby. Now, I'm not suggesting anybody has a baby at 14, but it happens, right? But our bodies have been created that way. They're designed that way. We get our period at 13, 14 years old, and our bodies are at the perfect levels of hormones of fertility, unless there's something wrong with us, right? But for the average healthy woman, we are ready to get pregnant from the time we get our period until the time we get older in our mid to late 30s and early 40s, when our body is not producing enough estrogen, progesterone, our thyroid is changing. It might not be as active. We might need some help when it comes to thyroid, DHEA. Our bones are getting more brittle. Testosterone, another hormone. So the three biggies that you always hear about: estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. So those levels of, just let's say, those three hormones are declining. With each year, they decline. Our bones get more brittle with each year, and that's because our hormone levels change. So when we're in our 20s and 20s, a more acceptable time to have a baby, right? Because when I say acceptable, you understand what I mean. For a young child to have a baby, they're not really equipped mentally to have a baby, but their body is ready. I'm talking from a body standpoint. Biologically, their body is ready to have a baby. Their hormone levels are very balanced to be fertile and make lots of babies. In your 30s, it is a prime time, 20s and 30s, prime time. I've said this a million times, to put on muscle, to get in the gym, to hire a trainer, to start lifting weights so you have that muscle for the rest of your life. Nobody can take away that muscle that you build in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, because you are still at prime bodybuilding time, building muscle time, 20s, 30s, and 40s. Is it ever too late to build muscle? No, but it just gets harder. Is it ever too late to save for retirement? No, but if you start saving in your 20s instead of starting to save in your 50s and 60s, you will be in a better position when you are older to retire. And if you start building muscle, and your body, just like your body's going, okay, I'm ready to be pregnant. Okay, I'm ready to build muscle. Bring it on, bring it on. My hormones are level. For the average healthy woman, your hormone levels are ready to make a baby and build muscle. When we start getting into our 40s, it gets to be a little bit harder to get pregnant, to make muscle, right? So if we've built the muscle earlier in our life, we still have that muscle. The only way we're going to lose that muscle is if we stop working out. And I can attest to that, because when I had my shoulder injury, I did not lift weights in my left hand and my muscle atrophied. So I did lose muscle, but I know it's there and I know I can build it back. It's not that easy anymore at 63 years old. It's not that easy. And I got to tell you, it's freaking frustrating to me. So if you feel any type of symptoms in your 30s or 40s, see a healthcare provider who is an expert in hormone replacement therapy. They will let you know from your blood work and your medical history whether or not you are a healthy candidate for hormone replacement therapy. It is completely normal for a woman to realize 7 to 10 years prior to going through menopause to show that her body is not doing the same things, for her body to show her something's not right. Have I made that point? Pay attention to your body in your 30s and early 40s. It's telling you that you are going to be going through menopause in the next 7 to 10 years. The average age of a menopausal woman, as I said at the beginning of the show, is about 55. So it's not unusual for a woman who's 45 to be going through perimenopausal, having perimenopausal symptoms. But it can happen as early as your mid-30s. And for me, it was 38. And I did start going through menopause. I went through menopause at 50. So it was 13 years of on and off symptoms that I knew it was coming. And this doesn't mean that you need to struggle. And the healthier you are going through menopause, that's from perimenopause to postmenopause. Once we hit postmenopause, ladies, we're in it until the day we die. Okay. It doesn't it doesn't go away. We are a postmenopausal woman. So if you have no perimenopausal symptoms right now, you haven't started. And that's great. So get to the gym. Always got to throw that part in about getting to the gym and lifting weights. It's never too late, but it's just harder when you start later. So let's get into what menopause is. I've already sort of touched upon it. Menopause is the point in time when a woman has not had a menstrual period for 12 consecutive months. So while at the age of 47, I decided that I wanted to compete in fitness shows at 47. Now I'm perimenopausal, but I don't give a shit because I'm fit as fuck and I want to get fitter than I've ever been in my life. And I want to get on stage and I want to compete and I want to win. So I find a wonderful coach. She's incredibly encouraging. She's nurturing, but tough, exactly the kind of coach that I want. And at the age of 48, 47, so I must have started, I think I started at 46. That's when I started my journey with that. And at 47, she said, Harrison, you're ready. You guys have heard me tell this story before. She said, you're ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. She throws me on stage and she's like, you're ready. And from there, I got my sea legs and nothing could stop me. It was like the first time I spoke in public. I was shaking literally like a leaf you've never seen shake in your entire life. And then you could never take the microphone away from me. Well, it was the same thing. I loved competing. I loved the balance of beauty and strength, masculine and feminine energy. It's the ultimate feminine and masculine energy balance. And at the moment in my life, it was something that I had wanted to do in my 30s that I wasn't quote unquote allowed to do in my marriage. So this was really big for me. And I'm telling you this story because just because you're in perimenopause and you're having menopausal symptoms like hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, irregular periods, the whole thing that I was talking about before, doesn't mean that you have to stop living. Menopause doesn't mean that you pause your life. It means you continue to play. It means that you go through it. It means that you deal with it. I had nothing. My doctor had given me a low dose of estrogen. So I went back on the birth control, even though, well, it was smart. I mean, I was divorced now. I was having sex. So yes, it was important that I was on birth control. So we had found that a new birth control, low estrin, which I was on, but then they took me off. Might have been a different one, but they put me on low estrin, which was a very low dosage of estrogen, which would keep me from getting pregnant, help with my hot flashes, which it really didn't. I was more concerned I didn't want to get pregnant because you're having irregular periods, and that's when a lot of people have their midlife babies. You've heard of that, ladies, right? The midlife baby, the woman who has a baby, oops, and that baby's 10 years younger than all the other kids. That's the oopsie baby that we have. I didn't have, but that a lot of women have. I remember, when my youngest daughter went to school, and there was a woman who was, I think she was like 45, and our kids were in first grade, and she was there with her kid, and her other kids were like in college or something like that. It was crazy, but every child is an absolute blessing. So, but that does happen. So a lot of people, a lot of women who are going through menopause and get their periods irregular think, well, I'm never going to get pregnant. Yeah, you could. So that's what I use for birth control. But I was also still competing. I started my competition life then in my mid to late 40s. And I'm telling you this story because I was struggling, but because I had a healthy foundation, because I was healthy, um, eating healthy, living a healthy life, exercising regularly, lifting weights before everybody made it to be the next best thing. I've been lifting weights for 43 years. So for me, lifting weights was not a big deal. It was just part of my life. So I'm telling you this because if you are healthy and going through menopause, it will make that time in your life just a tad bit easier. But if you follow me on Instagram, you will see, and you can follow me at Jody Harrison Bauer. I talk so much about the fact that ladies, you do not have to struggle through menopause. There is help. I did not have that luxury of having anybody help me. I remember training clients and just being in this huge heat, like just a huge hot flash. It is, if any of you have experienced a hot flash, it is like nothing you've ever experienced in your life. Imagine standing in the middle of a fire pit. That is exactly what it's like. So my suggestion is always dress in layers. So just be aware of how you feel and find somebody who can help you, because now there is more help. And if you need the names of anybody, I can give you the names of doctors who all work virtually. It's a different world now. You don't have to be in the same town as your doctor. And had I known that, if I knew then what I know now, I definitely would have been on HRT. And I probably wouldn't have had the mood swings that I had. The muscle building was still there. The discipline was there. I'm not your normal person when it comes to, I'm different. I'm very high performing, very highly disciplined. So I was always going to the gym. I wouldn't let anything get in my way of going to the gym or eating healthy. So those things were down pat. And that's why I always say that at the foundation of everything is your health and wellness. And it's important to continue those things through menopause, because it really will help save your mind and body, specifically weight management. Because as we go through menopause and your metabolism does change, why does your metabolism slow down? Because it's controlled by your hormones, by your thyroid. Your thyroid isn't as active. It needs help. Your estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, DHEA, they're all declining. And you're wondering, what's going on? Why do I feel tired? So what happens is we start to feel tired, and then we don't want to get to the gym. We say, fuck it to eating healthy. And the next thing we know, we get on the scale and we're gaining weight. The reason we gain weight during menopause is because we are not as active and we are not eating as healthy. The reason you hear about the menopausal belly is because cortisol levels go up and all of the other hormones decline. Testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, just to name a few. They all decline, which makes getting pregnant harder, which makes working out harder, which means prioritizing your health harder. Putting the effort into relationships gets harder. You may be depressed. All of these things can be helped with leveling out your hormones. Being on hormone replacement therapy can impact your life so much, but it's not going to completely change your life. You have to change your life. And the way we change our life is by educating ourselves and feeling empowered with that education, just like I say at the beginning of the show, and then inspiring others to do the same, which is what I feel my job is right here, to educate, empower, and inspire you, as I say, to live a fearlessly authentic life. But one of the reasons I got divorced was so I can be fearlessly authentic. And when I think about my life, when I go all the way back to my life and think about everything, my life began when I had my daughters. That gave me the biggest purpose of life. Before then, I was working to make money, right? I wanted to fall in love. So I had fallen in love. I had a really good job. I was making money. And then we wanted to create a family. So when I think back in my life, my biggest purpose came with my daughters. And then my life started again when I started taking risks on myself and learning more about myself and understanding why certain things were important and getting very clear on my purpose. And I'm here today to help you feel better in your body and to be highly vigilant about recognizing changes that you feel in your mind and body, to be present in your vessel, and to understand that if changes are occurring, there must be something in my body that's changing, and I need to find out what it is. So what happens is you have perimenopause. It can happen as early as in your 30s. Menopause comes, say it's 50, the average age is about 53, 55. I know I've thrown out different numbers here, but when a woman becomes completely postmenopausal, which means that she's gone a full year without getting her period, because from the time ages 50 to 55, it could be like, oh, I went 7 months without getting a period, and like, shit, I got my period. So then we got to start the whole thing over again and over again and over again. So this could last. For me, it lasted from the age of 38 to, I would say I was in the clear by 55. But I went through the full year of no period at the age of, it started, oh my God, I'm just realizing this. It started like at my last competition, which that was my second world show at 49. So yeah, in November of that year, when I was 49, I had gotten my last period. No, it was October. The competition was in November. So in October, I remember that marked a year. So from the ages of 48 to 49, I didn't get my period. And so by the time I was 50, I was officially postmenopausal. So from the age of 50 to 60, I functioned with an empty tank, no hormones, no hormones. Maybe there was a little bit of testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, but basically not the functionality of my hormones that I had earlier in my life. And obviously not getting pregnant, right? So it's kind of a sad time, because you realize, okay, well, even if I want to, I could never have another child. Does this make me an old lady? Now, I was in a relationship at the time and still felt very attractive, and I was still very sexually active. But when we hear about women having a low libido doesn't necessarily mean that they're low in testosterone. It could be your partner. So be aware of that who is your partner, and they don't always correlate. So you could have a low libido with somebody you're not into, but a high libido with somebody you're into, and that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your testosterone levels. Because I was having a lot of sex in my 50s, and my testosterone levels were probably low, although I was still building muscle. And I just think, so much of that is genetic also. And I take after my dad. My dad had a very muscular legs, and had good muscle tone, and had never lifted a weight in his life, but played tennis and golf. So now you're in menopause, and now you're postmenopausal. And the definition of postmenopause is the stage of life after menopause lasting for the rest of a woman's life, which I already said. You are a postmenopausal woman now. Welcome to the club again. And this is where you will be until the day we die. How do you want to feel? Do you want to feel like an out of shape, unhealthy old lady? Like, maybe that's what your grandmother looked like. Maybe that's what your mom looked like. That's maybe what the women around you look like. But don't you want more? That's not you. Don't you want to be prepared for postmenopause? If you're 30 and you're listening to me right now, if you're in your 30s and you're listening to me right now, you don't have to look like the average postmenopausal woman looks like. You can change that right now through exercise, nutrition, and educating yourself, getting your blood work done, and knowing where your imbalances are. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're not having any symptoms whatsoever, like my daughters, but I want them to get their blood work done anyway, so they will know when they go through menopause what their levels should be. They'll already have a baseline. I did not have that. So it's up to you to decide how you want to live the rest of your life. We're living longer. We don't need to struggle through menopause. There is help available. And if you're not taking advantage of the science out there, of the conclusive test results, of all the polls and clinical studies done to show how helpful HRT is for a woman who is a candidate for it. And that is important to find out from your doctor. The symptoms of a postmenopausal woman might still be some of the symptoms we had during menopause. So I knew at the age of 50 that I was done having my period, that I was a postmenopausal woman. However, what so many of us think, which is what I thought, was like, oh, yay, no more symptoms. But that's not true. Those symptoms still linger after it's been a year of not getting your period. You might still have mood swings, night sweats, hot flashes, vaginal dryness, all of those things. And there are things that can help you get through that. You don't need to struggle. The thing that I want you to also understand as a postmenopausal woman is, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, is bone density. I have osteopenia, which is the precursor to osteoporosis, not because I didn't lift weights, but because I was low in my hormones. I had low estrogen. So I had to, I developed osteopenia. I think I have it in my neck, my lower back, and my hips. You don't need to do that, because if you are on hormone replacement therapy and you are lifting weights and you are eating healthy, you're going to have strong, strong, dense bones. And if God forbid you fall, guess what, ladies? You're going to get right back up. And you're not going to have to depend on anybody to take care of you. And if you, listen, this is what I'm nervous about. You're not paying attention to the changes in your body. You go through menopause, you struggle. Now you're a postmenopausal woman. You've gained 20, 30 pounds. You still haven't started exercising. Maybe you're walking, and that's great. Still haven't gotten control of your diet. Bone loss is a real thing as we go through menopause. Women can lose up to 20% of their bone density in the 5 to 7 years post menopause. So I didn't find out that I had osteopenia until about 4 years ago, when I was about 59 or 60. This makes the bones more fragile. Osteoporosis is a condition characterized by weak and brittle bones, increasing the risks of fractures. Do you remember the commercial, "I've fallen, but I can't get up"? Well, that was a postmenopausal woman falling because she had, more than likely, low muscle mass and weak bones. She fractured a hip, she broke a bone, which is why she couldn't get up. And now, more than likely, she's dependent on somebody else. So she's not living on her own anymore. She's gaining more weight. She's isolating because she's not independent anymore. I know I'm making a really sad story to end out this episode, But this is so important for you ladies to understand. Recognize what you're going through, mind and body. Seek out an expert in the field and learn about HRT and if it's right for you. And if it's right for you and you have the right doctor, you will make menopause not a day in the park, but more of a day in the park than I ever had. And a lot of women my age have gone through. I see all of these women in their 50s complaining about how they feel. And you know who's not complaining about how she feels? Is the woman who's on HRT, because she's working on balancing out those hormones and feeling better in her life. And she is not pausing her life anymore because she thinks or thought she had to. She's now pressing play. Life begins when you start feeling better in your body and being proactive in taking care of yourself. There will be more about this subject to come, but for now, I have to go. And thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Fearlessly Authentic. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. And until next week, go live your most fearlessly authentic life, everybody. Bye-bye.